This story starts with a confession I never expected, ends with a silence she'll never forget, and takes a turn no one saw coming. Let's get into it. She told me while brushing her teeth, not in a letter, not during some emotional conversation, just in the mirror. Foam in the corners of her mouth, electric toothbrush buzzing between her words. I had a date last night. She said it like she was telling me we were out of almond milk, like it was a logistical update, not a bomb, not a betrayal. I stood behind her in the doorway, holding a laundry basket full of mismatched socks, blinking at her reflection. For a second, I thought I'd misheard her. I was halfway through sorting her gym leggings from my work socks. My world was normal, stupidly normal, until that sentence snapped it in half. She spit, rinsed, wiped her lips, and looked at me through the mirror. I thought, you should know. That was it. No explanation, no apology, no asking how I felt. Just a fact dropped into the room like a wine glass on tile. And I didn't say anything, not at first. I just stared at her like my brain had hit a blue screen. I felt pathetic for still clutching a sock in each hand like some underpaid house elf. She turned around and leaned against the sink like she was expecting a rational response. I wanted to scream. I wanted to ask who, when, where, why. But all I could manage was this stupid, breathless whisper. A date. She nodded. Yeah, nothing happened. I just needed to feel something. He was nice. That word, nice. Like she'd gone out for soup with a stranger and called it self-care. I felt my lungs folding in on themselves. My voice cracked before I could stop it. So, you dressed up, put on perfume, and left me here doing our taxes while you flirted with some nice guy. She didn't flinch. It wasn't like that. But it was like that. It was exactly like that. And the worst part? I wasn't even angry. I was embarrassed. Embarrassed for being so dull, so small, so forgettable, that my wife needed someone else just to feel alive for 2 hours on a Tuesday. There are moments in life that humiliate you, so quietly. You almost missed the sound of your dignity collapsing. That was mine. She walked past me like nothing had just happened. Like she hadn't just casually told me she went on a date with another man while I was at home fixing the dripping kitchen faucet, the one she kept complaining about for weeks. She slipped into the bedroom humming as she changed into pajamas, and I stood in the hallway, still holding that stupid sock in one hand and a pair of my boxers in the other, as if I was still part of the life we were supposed to be building. It was only when I heard the drawer close that I moved. I walked to the kitchen like a ghost and sat down at the table, staring at the cold lasagna I had reheated earlier. I didn't feel like eating. I didn't feel like breathing. I just kept thinking about all the small signs I ignored. I remembered 3 weeks ago when she came home with a takeout bag and told me she'd accidentally ordered for 2. I remembered the receipt I found in her coat pocket from a wine bar we'd never been to with a handwritten note that said, "Next time, dessert's on me, winky face." I remembered her laugh lately, how it was brighter when she looked at her phone than when she looked at me. All the pieces were there, I just didn't want to see the picture. When she came back out, she sat across from me like nothing was out of the ordinary. Her hair was damp from the shower. She was wearing that oversized hoodie, the one I bought her during our first winter together. The audacity of it made my stomach twist. "You're being quiet," she said, almost annoyed. I nodded. I'm just trying to figure out what I'm supposed to do with that sentence. She rolled her eyes. "Carter, it wasn't some grand betrayal. It was coffee." We talked. That's it. You called it a date, I said, voice trembling. Your words, not mine. There was a pause, just a heartbeat. But in that pause, I could feel the entire foundation of our marriage shifting under my feet. I needed to see if I still had something, she said finally. If someone could look at me like you used to. I wanted to ask if she even knew how hard I'd been trying. How I stayed up late helping her edit her resume last month. How I spent 3 weeks planning her birthday surprise even though she never said thank you. How I held back my own panic when I lost my job last year just to keep her from worrying. Instead, I said something I didn't plan. Something that came out quiet but honest. You're not sorry, are you? She looked at me, and for the first time I saw it in her eyes. Not guilt, not sadness. Just distance, like I was already someone she used to know. No, she said, I'm not. And that broke me more than anything. That night, I didn't sleep. I just lay there beside her, pretending to be unconscious while her breathing stayed even and slow, like she had no trouble slipping into dreams after dropping a bomb on our marriage. I stared at the ceiling, then at the glow of her phone lighting up every 10 minutes. She turned it face down each time, thinking I didn't notice, but I did. I noticed everything now. At 2:14 a.m., I got out of bed and walked to the living room. I didn't know what I was doing. Pacing, thinking, trying not to cry too loudly in case she heard. My chest felt like it was full of wet concrete, each breath heavier than the last. For the first time in years, I realized I had absolutely no idea who I was married to. And that's when I saw it. On the armrest of the couch, a wrinkled men's shirt. Not mine, wrong size, wrong brand. A small coffee stain near the collar. Willa hadn't mentioned anyone coming over, and she certainly never said she brought her coffee date back to our house. But the shirt was real, solid, physical evidence that this wasn't just emotional wandering. This was physical, present, real. My legs buckled slightly as I picked it up, holding it with my fingertips like it was toxic. I pressed it to my face before I could stop myself. Cologne, subtle, warm, unfamiliar. Someone had been here in my house, on my couch, while I was probably upstairs asleep, or worse, downstairs doing something ridiculous like prepping her lunch for work. At that moment, everything inside me collapsed. I didn't scream. I didn't throw the shirt across the room. I just folded it carefully, as if handling a delicate artifact from a different life, and placed it back on the couch like it belonged there more than I did. By morning, I had made a decision. Not a dramatic one. Not the kind you see in movies where the guy storms out or delivers some grand speech. No, mine was quieter. I made coffee like always, scrambled 2 eggs just how she liked them. I even placed her vitamins beside her plate. When she came down the stairs, hair still damp from the shower, she gave me a soft smile. "You're up early?" "Yeah," I said, sipping my coffee. Did some cleaning. She didn't notice the shirt was gone. I had put it in a plastic grocery bag and left it in the trunk of my car. She sat, took a bite, and started scrolling through her phone. Business as usual, as if the night before hadn't happened. I stared at her for a long time, memorizing the lines in her face. The way she tapped her thumb on the table while reading something. I used to love that about her, all her little details. Now, they just felt foreign, like I was watching a stranger inhabit the body of someone I used to know. And then I asked her as calmly as I could, "What's his name?" The fork paused halfway to her mouth. "Whose name?" "The guy whose shirt you left on the couch." Her face went pale. It was the first time she didn't have a script ready. She blinked. Her fork clinked against the edge of the plate, and for a moment I thought she was going to deny it, just flat out lie like nothing happened. I prepared myself for that. I'd even rehearsed it in my head. Her saying, "What shirt?" or "You're being paranoid." And me sitting there, nodding like the idiot I've always been. But something about the silence unsettled her. The kind of silence that wasn't waiting for an answer. It was demanding one. "Whose shirt?" she repeated, her voice just slightly off pitch. A defensive high note, like she was trying to pretend she didn't already know. I didn't answer. I just stared at her hands. She always tapped her nails on the table when she was nervous. Now she was gripping the fork too tight. Her thumb twitched slightly. That's how I knew. The way you know when a storm is coming, even if the sky still looks clear. I found it at 2 a.m. "M," I said slowly on the couch. It smelled like him. I don't wear that brand of cologne. You don't wear that brand of cologne. So either someone broke into our house just to leave a shirt behind, or there's something you're not telling me. She swallowed hard, then set the fork down with a quiet clink. Her shoulders slumped, but she still didn't speak. Not at first. It was like she thought if she stayed still long enough, the question might evaporate. "I didn't mean for it to go this far," she finally whispered. "It was supposed to be one time. He wasn't even supposed to come here." That was the first time I felt the air leave my lungs. It was like she reached into my chest and deflated something I didn't know could be punctured. I looked around the kitchen at the window she once begged me to install. The mug rack she insisted we paint teal. The stupid fruit bowl we never kept full, and realized this house wasn't mine anymore. Not emotionally, not spiritually. She'd let someone else exist in this space, in our rhythm, in our little world. "You brought him here?" I asked. My voice cracked, but I didn't care anymore. "To our home, to the couch where we watched movies, where we—" I stopped myself. My stomach turned. "It wasn't like that," she said quickly. "We just talked. He left his shirt by accident." "What? Did he vanish into mist afterward?" I said, "You expect me to believe that he came over to talk and somehow stripped off a shirt he forgot to take with him?" That's when she broke. Her face contorted into this weird mix of shame and frustration. "I don't know what I'm doing anymore, Mariel. I feel like I'm drowning. And you just stand there with a towel asking me why I'm wet." The metaphor was almost poetic. I could have admired it if I wasn't so busy trying not to throw up. "You think I'm standing with a towel?" I said, my voice trembling. "I've been building a raft for both of us while you were too busy checking if the lifeguard had dimples." She flinched. I'd never spoken like that before. Never. But something in me had cracked wide open, and once that crack formed, it wasn't going to close easily. She didn't say anything. Just sat there, quiet, small, suddenly stripped of all her bravado. That's when I knew she hadn't expected me to fight. She thought I'd sulk, maybe cry, but ultimately stay. That was always the story of our relationship. I was the quiet one, the soft one, the one who forgave. But not this time, not after the shirt. She followed me as I walked out of the kitchen barefoot, panicked. I could hear her trying to explain, her voice cracking now, but I wasn't listening anymore. I wasn't even walking anywhere specific. I was just moving. I think part of me hoped that if I kept going, I could walk right out of the version of reality where this was happening. But the walls stayed the same. The floors didn't shift. The betrayal still hung in the air like cheap perfume. I didn't mean for it to happen. She repeated behind me, "Mariel, just stop for a second." I did stop right in front of our bedroom closet, and I opened it. I don't know why I did that. Maybe because I wanted to see if the rest of our life was still intact. If the clothes still looked like ours. If her side still smelled like her and not like the man who left his shirt on my couch. But what I saw instead made my stomach twist again. There was a small duffel bag tucked in the corner, black. No, it hadn't been there before. I bent down, unzipped it, and inside were jeans, 2 blouses, makeup, a charger, and a toothbrush. Not mine, not ours. Hers. A getaway bag. Plan? I didn't even look back at her. I just stepped aside, still holding the zipper halfway open. "This yours?" I asked. She hesitated. That pause again. That damning pause. "I packed it last week," she admitted. "I didn't know if I was going to leave or not. I needed to feel like I had an out." That was the moment I realized she wasn't confused. She wasn't panicking because she hurt me. She was panicking because I found out before she could decide how to spin it. "So, while I was Googling dinner ideas and refilling your gas tank," I said slowly, "you were preparing to vanish." Her mouth opened, then closed. She looked like she was about to cry, but nothing came out. For the first time, her face broke. Not the angry, manipulative version of broken, but genuinely cracked. She was unraveling, but not for me, for herself. "I wasn't going to go through with it," she whispered. "I didn't know what I wanted." "No," I said. "You did. You just didn't think I'd find out before you were ready to make me the villain." I turned to walk out of the room, but she grabbed my arm. Not hard, just enough to make me stop. "Mariel, please. I made a mistake. I got lost in something stupid. You're a good man. You didn't deserve this." That was the first time she said something that sounded real. "You're right," I said, looking her in the eyes. I didn't. I gently removed her hand from my arm and walked toward the front door. Not to leave forever. Not yet. But I needed to breathe somewhere that didn't feel like betrayal soaked into the walls. As I grabbed my keys, she finally started crying like she just realized that for the first time in our relationship, I might actually be done staying silent. I didn't know where I was driving. I just needed to feel the car moving, the wind through the open window, the thrum of the tires reminding me that I was still alive. My knuckles were white on the steering wheel, and the world outside looked wrong, too normal for what had just happened. People were walking dogs, sipping coffee, laughing at crosswalks. Meanwhile, everything I knew had been disassembled like a broken clock. And now I was stuck staring at the gears, wondering where the time had gone. Couldn't call my brother. He always thought Willow was too perfect for me anyway. He'd see this as confirmation of everything he warned me about when I proposed. And I couldn't call my mother either. She still had Willa's graduation photo on the mantle, like she was the daughter she never had. So I did something strange. I called Felix. Felix wasn't my best friend, not in the traditional sense. He was a guy I used to work with 2 jobs ago, a sarcastic IT tech who made dark jokes and brewed his own beer in a tiny garage apartment. We hadn't spoken in nearly a year, but when his name appeared on my contact list, something told me he was the only person who wouldn't feed me cliches or tell me to be the bigger person. He answered on the 3rd ring. "Muriel, you okay, man?" "No," I said. "Not even close." 10 minutes later, I was sitting on a sagging futon in his apartment, holding a warm bottle of root beer and watching dust dance in the late afternoon light. I told him everything, not just the date or the shirt or the bag. I told him how I'd been feeling invisible in my own home, how I'd blamed myself for months for something I couldn't even name. Felix listened, didn't interrupt, just nodded slowly and scratched his beard. Then he said something I didn't expect. "You're not mad she cheated. You're mad because she planned it like an exit strategy, like a project with steps. That hit me harder than anything Willa had said. He was right. It wasn't the infidelity that gutted me most. It was the calculation, the quiet packing of the duffel bag, the toothbrush, the charger, the way she had one foot out of the life we built while I was still picking dinner napkins that matched her favorite plates. I stayed at Felix's for a few hours. He didn't try to give me advice. He just handed me a pillow and said, "Crash here if you need. Don't go back just because the house smells like home. Sometimes mold does too." By the time I got back in my car, the sky was dusky and bruised, and I realized I hadn't even texted her. No explanation, no apology, no "where are you?" Not even a passive-aggressive emoji. Total silence. And that, I figured, probably scared her more than any screaming match ever could, because for once, I wasn't begging to be chosen. When I pulled into the driveway later that night, the porch light was on. That was Willa's habit, leaving it glowing like a lighthouse no matter how late I stayed out. Except tonight, it didn't feel like an invitation. It felt like bait. I sat in the car for almost 10 minutes, staring at that soft amber light while rehearsing the hundreds of versions of the confrontation I wanted to have. But the truth was, I didn't have a plan. I just didn't want to run anymore. The house was too quiet when I stepped inside. No TV, no music, just the buzz of the refrigerator and the creak of my footsteps on hardwood. I found her in the living room, sitting on the edge of the couch with her legs crossed, wearing that same hoodie again, the one that used to mean comfort. Now it just looked like camouflage. She stood when she saw me. "Mariel." I nodded, didn't say anything, just dropped my keys in the bowl by the door and walked past her slowly. She followed me into the kitchen like I was some wild animal she wasn't sure would bite. "I didn't know if you were coming back," she said. I didn't either. Silence. Then she said it, the line I was waiting for, but still wasn't ready to hear. "I want to fix this." I almost laughed. Not because it was funny, but because of how rehearsed it sounded, like she'd been waiting to deliver it all day. Like she was hoping the right combination of words would somehow undo everything. "You want to fix this?" I repeated. After hiding dates, bringing him here, and packing a bag like I was some job you were planning to quit. Her eyes welled up. "It wasn't like that." "Then tell me what it was like." She hesitated. I was lost. Lost people don't bring strangers into their house and leave breadcrumbs to a secret life. I stepped closer. "You didn't get lost. You walked away one careful step at a time." She didn't cry. She looked like she wanted to, but she didn't. And that's when I realized something. She probably didn't even know about herself. She'd already mourned the end of us. That's why she wasn't falling apart now. She'd done it in stages, behind closed doors, while smiling at me across the dinner table like nothing was wrong. She'd already said goodbye to me, long before I ever knew we were done. But I wasn't done speaking. Not yet. I stayed up for years, trying to be the kind of man you wouldn't get bored with. I read relationship articles. I learned how to fold your laundry the way you liked. I sat through your friends' terrible game nights without complaint. I watched you drift away and thought it was my fault for not holding tighter. But it was never about me being enough. It was about you wanting more and not telling me you were going looking for it. She lowered her eyes. The silence between us was deafening. Then I said the one thing I hadn't dared to admit out loud before. "I don't think I love you anymore. I think I just miss who you were when you still looked at me like I mattered." Her knees buckled slightly, and for the first time since this all began, she looked scared, not guilty, not ashamed. Scared because she realized I wasn't here to save the marriage, I was here to end it, with clarity. She sat down slowly, as if the weight of what I was just said finally reached her. I didn't yell. I didn't accuse her of ruining everything. I simply told her the truth. And the silence that followed felt louder than any argument we could have had. For once, I wasn't the man begging to be chosen. I wasn't the one waiting for crumbs of affection. I was just done. Will tried to speak again, but her voice cracked. "You really don't love me anymore," I think I said. "I loved a version of you that loved me back. And I'm not angry at that version. I miss her, but she hasn't been here in a long time." She looked away, blinking fast, and I saw her shoulders tremble just slightly. There was no more hiding behind her usual calm. Her walls were gone, and for the first time, it was her who felt small in the room. "Not me. I never thought you'd be the one to walk away," she whispered. That made me pause, not because she was wrong, but because she was absolutely right. She always believed I'd wait it out, that no matter what she did, I'd be there like wallpaper, familiar, unmoving. But I wasn't wallpaper. I was a person, and for the first time in years, I felt like one. I didn't pack a bag that night. I didn't slam a door or break her things. I just stood up, picked up my jacket, and calmly walked toward the door. Before I stepped out, I turned back and said something simple. Not to hurt her, but because I meant it. "I hope you find what you were looking for. I really do. But you won't find it by hurting people who loved you." She didn't follow me. She didn't scream or cry or beg. She just sat there in the middle of the house we once built together and watched me leave with the kind of silence that only comes when it's already too late. It's been 7 months since that night. I moved into a small apartment near the lake. It's nothing fancy, but it's mine. I started journaling again, picked up an old guitar from a pawn shop, and even joined a trivia team at a local bar. Most days I still feel the echoes of who I was. The guy who forgave too much, stayed too long. But slowly I'm learning to be someone else, someone lighter, someone free. And the best part? I don't miss her like I thought I would. I miss who I thought she was, but not who she became. She messaged me once, a short text. "I regret it all." I didn't reply because sometimes healing isn't about revenge or closure. It's about finally knowing your worth and walking away the moment someone forgets it.